And for that, we went to the theater and saw Ari Aster's Eddington. And I'll get us started on this one. This is a movie set against the backdrop of the COVID pandemic in 2020 in a fictional town called Eddington, New Mexico. And it does its best to recreate the feeling and hysteria around like the overblown nonsense of the coronavirus with the mask mandates and the division that it caused. And it also places us squarely in the summer of 2020 in the Black Lives Matter movement and protests and riots that ensued with that. Then in the movie is also sort of a neo-Western. Joaquin Phoenix plays Joe Cross, who is a sheriff who decides to run for mayor. His opponent is the incumbent Ted Garcia, played by Pedro Pascal, who Cross disagrees with and how he's handling the pandemic mandates and other things. Joe's wife is Louise, played by Emma Stone, who develops a thing for this cult leader, played by Austin Butler. McKeel Ward and Luke Grimes are Joe's fellow officers. And the officers are all put in this really tough situation because the unrest reaches a boiling point. Even though it's a really small town, it still is like more than they can take because several things kind of go viral and gets the attention from the national media, and it might be more than a little town can actually handle. And there will be a movie at some point that really speaks to like objectively what the pandemic was like, but this is not it. This is not like my experience. This is not anyone's reality that I know. It was like a fringe sort of thing, and it really takes some liberties, especially with the timeline and like the tensions. I don't really know. Maybe New Mexico's that much different. I like that the movie's basically like a modern Western, though. The whole thing's centered around the idea that this corrupt mayor is who's seen as corrupt by the sheriff, and the sheriff has different ideas and wants to run against him, and then the whole thing turns like bloody and deadly. Like there's a great movie in there somewhere. Pedro Pascal is kind of wasted though in this role, and the second half turns into like this action Western, but it's sort of absurd at the same time. It comes off like I kept thinking of like Bounty Law, like the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood fake show thing. That's sort of what it looks like. It feels a lot like a Nicolas Cage movie. It's not that different from like The Surfer or Dream Scenario and how Phoenix plays his role, because he's a little nuts. He doesn't really know that, but he starts to question his own reality and his own sanity. And it would have been like a legendary Nick Cage role. I mean, like Phoenix sort of does his thing, but I kept thinking like, man, I really want to see Cage in this. I think the movie also has no true perspective on what it's trying to say. Like it has a lot to say, but none of it's really clear, and it comes off like a whimper. Instead, we just get like endless scenes of protesting and screaming and like indescribably loud gunfire. And Joaquin Phoenix is as unlikable as he was in Beau is Afraid, which was my worst movie of a couple of years ago. But he's far from the most unlikable character in this movie, though. The one thing that Aster does get right about this is how stupid the young people are, like how easily manipulated they are and how peer pressured and overly emotional they are, and the misguided enthusiasm that turns into mob mentality because of whatever the hot topic is. That the escalation of everything is because of the young people and who are just looking to mix it up. And that's the one thing he gets right. And there's a really freaking cool Tommy gun that we get to see at one point too. This is a bad movie. Like parts reminded me of when I watched Lars von Trier's Antichrist, and I knew almost immediately that it was one of the worst movies ever made. This one has some redeeming parts, though, when that movie did not. Although I did have an initial reaction that was pretty similar. The second act is like bloody fun, and I wish more of it was like that. McKeel Ward is also really good in this. Other than that, I think it's kind of a train wreck. So I have it at 1.5 stars. What do you think, Adam?
All right, I'm a little higher on it for you. I was kind of borderline thinking like 3 stars on this film for a while, 2.5. But again, like hearing some of the thoughts here, I think that as of now, this is probably like the definitive 2020 film. There is some big swings that Ari Aster does take in this movie, and I haven't seen Beau is Afraid. I've been afraid to watch that movie because hearing your guys' thoughts on it. But I'm a huge fan of Midsommar. It's one of my favorite movies from him. and Hereditary, which is good, just not Midsommar. I think that his journey into horror is fascinating, but this is a different type of horror. It's exactly what it is. It's kind of captured everything in there. It talked about the mask mandates. It talked about the mob mentality of the Black Lives Matter movement and all the different protests there. I think there's different horror elements in the day-to-day life that happened in 2020. Is it the same thing that happened everywhere? No. I know my 2020 experience was like I was in the middle of the protest in 2020, servicing toilets in the middle of what in Washington was a little part of Seattle called Capitol Hill area. There's like this whole big protest with thousands of people there, and I had to take my work truck into that area. So seeing a ton of people for a certain cause and seeing a lot of the destruction that was caused in those streets was very interesting. This movie is not perfect, whatever, but I applaud the swing, and that's why I was kind of borderline on the 3-star range. I think that you're kind of right on the Nick Cage comp of for Joaquin Phoenix. He's doing his thing that only certain actors can do. That's why I think this is kind of a high war for Phoenix in this movie, because there's not many people that can really pull off what he was doing. But there's also like some really good actors that are sorely like misused, and like they don't have anything to do. Pedro Pascal, that guy's on a amazing heater right now. He's like fucking fantastic in everything he's doing. The Last of Us. He's doing a Fantastic Four. I'm excited for that. I know you are too. Just joking. But and he's on an amazing heater of his. Yeah. Doing amazing stuff right now. That and just being in a lot of good projects. He's kind of awesome. He's good in the stuff that he's in, but he's not in it enough to warrant, like being this like great performance here. But the biggest crime is Emma Stone in this. Like, she's doing nothing. She's sleepwalking through this. Like, remember how like awesome she was in like the early 2000s, late 2010s, and like obviously her Oscar win and even Poor Things, I think, is warranted. Like, it's a pretty good performance, but like she's doing nothing. Like, anybody could have done. Like, if we're talking about low wars, like anybody could have done that performance. Really,
Yeah.
she doesn't have anything to do, which is kind of like the biggest downfall of this movie. Ari Aster, known for having strong female characters. That's why I think this is another movie that Zach would never want to deep dive, because of that specific reason. And you have Emma Stone doing absolutely nothing and does not kind of live up to the Toni Collette, Florence Pugh area of women performances in his movies. Luke Grimes is cool. He's doing kind of his Yellowstone thing in a way. This is cool to see him as well. The mom, Deidre O'Connell, as Dawn. She's playing the crazy lady. I honestly thought it was Sissy Spacek for when she first showed up. I was like, wait, she looks too young, but it's exactly who it is. Austin Butler, again, I think he's kind of wasted. It would be interesting to see a side part where it's just his character. Stickman confirmed he laid an egg. But anyway, Austin Butler, when he shows up, electric for the time being, kind of a hypnotic performance, but really kind of wasted as well. It's really the Joaquin Phoenix show. I was kind of mesmerized. I was in a theater with like 6 other people, and we laughed at the same times. Like, the funniest line was when that kid was saying, "Oh, we're this, that, and the other thing," and the dad's like, "What the fuck are you talking about? You're white." That's like the funniest line ever. And
Yeah.
everybody laughed
That
really
was the
loud.
correct reaction too.
It was so funny because it just shows how kind of how our thinking completely changed in that time frame. This is a good movie. No, could I not stop watching it? Could I look up? Was there any point where I wanted to look away? No, I was kind of mesmerized by what I was seeing. Train wreck, it being good, whatever the case is. I kind of want to give it 3 stars, but I think 2.5 is what it should be. But I kind of just want to give it respect because of the big swing, and it's Ari Aster's. it's his train wreck movie, but there's some merit there. I think there's a lot of good ideas. There's a lot of good parts of the movie. If there was individual stories and then they just kind of crammed it together to make this kind of coherent a little bit. The finale is kind of fun too. The big blockbuster gunfight is kind of cool. And some really awesome, like, grotesque thing. That guy's knee like exploded. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
The ending's kind of weird too. It's like, it's a weird. They're all sleeping in the same bed. Anyway, yeah, I'll give it 3, a low 3. I'll go there because of the swing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would not argue that it's no. I mean, it is a huge swing. I mean, and like I said, it will be an undertaking to come up with like a definitive COVID movie. And I mean, this movie is definitely long enough. It touches on enough things to do that. I just don't think they necessarily work. There will be one that will work at some point. I don't know who's going to make it or how. I just think, I mean, it seems, and the setting for the movie is strange. I mean, he's clearly trying to make a Western, but I think he shoehorned in the COVID stuff, and it doesn't necessarily work with the story he was trying to tell. But it's, I don't know. I mean, I kind of find it hard. I found it hard to watch because of just how, um, just how annoying and off-putting so many of the characters were. But I don't know. I mean, I didn't necessarily think it was that funny either. I guess it is sort of a satire, but I think it also thinks it's being very clever. So I'm not entirely sure. I mean, the audience I watched it was pretty dead silent too. Other than I watched it with Terry, and Terry was reacting to it in a way that makes me think that he probably liked it, but I don't. He didn't tell me his thoughts. This was one of his most anticipated movies of the summer, and so I will be interested to hear whenever he reports on that. But I couldn't get past just how horrible of an experience it was watching the movie, even the parts that I did appreciate.
Yeah, let's reevaluate real quick. Based off some of the movies I give him 3 stars, like that's the hard part. Is like movies I've already given 3 stars to. Like there's something like this movie is made better, sloppily, but made better than some of the other movies I've given 3 stars to. So it's another part of it that I have to think about. But yeah, this is I can see Terry really liking this movie for sure.